Moscow, 2 days later. Hawk stood inside a crowded metro station. Moscow's underground railway is considered the deepest and most secure in the world. Built during the Soviet era, each station was designed like a nuclear bomb shelter. In his hands, he carried a tourist map, but his eyes scanned the crowd without needing it. This was a dry run, mapping his escape route from the safe house to the jungle. To reach Siberia, he would have to board an old cargo train running the Novosibirsk line. Siberia, the largest forest and taiga on Earth. Size over 5 million square miles. Winter temperatures down to minus 40 degrees Celsius. For a sniper, the forest is perfect cover. But survival is a nightmare. In Russian Cold War doctrine, Siberia has always been a natural defense shield. Hawk scribbled a line into his diary. The mission zone isn't Moscow. It's the jungle. Silence will cover me better than walls. But as he headed toward the metro exit, he felt a gaze. A man in a leather jacket, earpiece tucked under his collar, was shadowing him. Hawk played the tourist stopping by a bookstore, but his soldier instinct screamed, FSB. Knowledge insert, FSB, the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation, successor to the KGB. Their network watches not only spies, but every foreigner. From airports to hotels, Moscow is saturated with their surveillance. For a CIA officer, Moscow is the most hostile city in the world. Using a glass showcase as a mirror, Hawk confirmed it. The man was still 20 feet behind. Another stood near a vending machine, hand hidden inside his sleeve against a radio set. This wasn't casual surveillance anymore, this was heat buildup. Hawk made a quick decision. At the next metro gate, he slipped into the crowd, used the press of bodies as cover, then took a side exit. Every sniper knows, for survival, concealment is more important than pulling the trigger. But now the FSB had his name. Later, Volkov met him back at the hotel, blowing smoke into the room. You're burned, Turner. Once the FSB smells a foreigner with secrets, they don't stop. Hawk calmly picked up his duffel bag. Then we moved to Plan B. Volkov frowned. Which is? Hawk looked out the window, at Moscow's snow-covered streets glittering in silence. To get out of this city, and into the jungle, before the jungle swallows me, or the FSB does. Moscow Freight Yard, midnight. The snowstorm was growing harsher in the wind. Hawk and Volkov stood behind an old warehouse. Out in the rail yard, steel wagons lined the tracks, smoke drifting from engines. Russia's freight network is considered the longest and oldest in the world. The Trans-Siberian Railway, stretching nearly 9,000 kilometers from Moscow to the Pacific Ocean. Volkov whispered, "This line goes to Novosibirsk. From there, we take smaller routes into the taiga. Once we reach the jungle, no satellites, no eyes." Hawk slung the duffel bag over his shoulder, his eyes scanning every corner. For a sniper, even a train yard felt like a battlefield. Any shadow could be hiding an enemy. Longest railway line in the world, 9,289 kilometers. Travel time, 7 days from Moscow to Vladivostok. During the Cold War, it was the backbone of Soviet military logistics. FSB and Russian rail police always monitor foreigners on this route. Hawk and Volkov crawled beneath a cargo wagon and slipped inside. In the dark, the only things that existed were the smell of diesel and the echo of steel. Volkov grinned faintly. "Congratulations, Turner. You're now officially a Russian stowaway." The train slowly began to move. The grinding of wheels became a symphony against the snow. Hawk pulled out his diary and wrote, "In the jungle, time moves slow. On the rails, every second counts." But the FSB wasn't far. On the other side of the yard, a black SUV rolled to a stop. 3 officers stepped out, speaking in Russian. "Target boarded. Foreign passport. Orders." The senior officer answered on the radio, "Don't lose him. Siberia is wide, but he can't hide forever." At the first checkpoint, an armed patrol boarded the train. Flashlights searched the wagons. Hawk and Volkov crouched between steel crates. Hawk's hand rested calmly on his trigger guard, but he knew, if a shot fired here, the mission would be over. One soldier knocked on their crate, then moved on. The whistle screamed, and the wheels rolled again. Volkov let out a soft laugh. You see, Turner? Russia is one big chessboard. Survive one move, prepare for the next. Hawk looked at him. Then let's make sure we checkmate before they do. Taiga equals coniferous forest belt covering 60% of Russia. Wildlife, wolves, Siberian tigers, brown bears. Temperatures drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius at night. For a sniper, this terrain is both heaven and hell, endless cover, but brutal survival. The train plunged into the frozen desert. Outside the window lay a white wilderness so deep it felt like the world had ended. Hawk quietly cleaned the barrel of his rifle and wrote in his diary, "The city was noise. The jungle will be silence. And silence is where I belong." The train kept cutting through the snow all night. When morning came, Hawk and Volkov got down at a small freight stop near Novosibirsk. From here, their journey continued on the forest trails. Volkov had arranged an old UAZ Jeep, a vehicle that had been reliable for the Russian army since the 1980s. The Jeep moved with crackling sounds over the snowy paths. After a few hours, they descended into the taiga. Siberian taiga. Area, 12 million square kilometers, equal to Canada plus USA. Temperature, minus 30 degrees Celsius to minus 50 degrees Celsius in winter. Rule of life. Survival depends on fire, shelter, and silence. In the Soviet era, Cold War spies were often given hideouts here. Hawk's first day in the forest. Hawk wore his snow camouflage jacket and kept his M40 sniper rifle tightly packed. He built a small camp, collected dry wood, and lit a fire with a magnesium lighter. Volkov pulled out some dried meat and said, "Fire is life here, Turner. Without it, the jungle will eat you." Hawk kept writing in his diary, "Taiga doesn't forgive. One mistake, and you're another ghost under the snow." In the evening, while Hawk and Volkov were setting up their shelter, a faint buzzing sound echoed in the air. Hawk immediately slid under a camouflage net. Volkov frowned and said, "FSB uses Orlan 10 drones. Thermal vision. If they catch our heat signature, it's over." Hawk quickly threw soil over the fire to kill the smoke. Minutes later, the drone moved away. At night, another test arrived. From within the forest came faint howling. Wolves. Volkov explained about the Siberian wolves. They hunt in packs. If you see one, there are 10 more you don't. Hawk cocked his pistol, but the wolves only circled at a distance and then faded away. That night Hawk realized this forest was his battlefield, but the rules weren't his. The next morning brought another threat. An FSB patrol team on snowmobiles tracked them. Hawk and Volkov dove behind a ridge as the roar of snowmobiles grew louder. Hawk set up his sniper rifle. One Russian soldier was scanning the area through binoculars. Hawk steadied his rifle and fired the first test shot. The bullet struck the soldier's helmet, dropping him instantly. The rest of the patrol returned fire, but Hawk used the snowstorm as cover and slipped away with Volkov to the other side. The FSB fired flares, but Hawk and Volkov had already sunk deeper into the forest. That night Hawk opened his diary and wrote, "The jungle hides me, the jungle tests me, but somewhere in this endless white, a general is waiting for his last breath." Volkov sat beside him, lit a cigarette, took a long drag and said, "Turner, from now on, every step we take, someone will be hunting us. You still think you can finish this mission?" Hawk looked straight into his eyes. "I didn't come this far to fail." Amid the snowstorm, only two things could be heard: the howling of wolves and distant FSB radio chatter.